Welcome. Welcome, everybody. We're back. We're back into my Ableton Live screen and you watching it. Thanks for everybody who's been coming back these last weeks. It's always fun to have familiar names in the chat. Yeah, this is a track I made with fellow Canadian The Mole some years ago. And as I unsolo it, I've got some cosmic rays filtering through already. So yeah, let's get into it. I wanted to, create something using some of these different data sets from NASA. So I thought I would constrain our workflow today to doing some sonification-based stuff. And a lot of electronic music takes inspiration from the stars. We've got all kinds of intergalactic techno and just general themes of outer space throughout the electronic music landscape. But what if we actually used data, in this case from NASA, and deep space imagery, also courtesy of NASA, to sort of fuel the musical process. And it doesn't have to fuel everything. We can use it as something to jam along with. But I think I'll try using either data or images for all of the sounds. So I'm going to show you what I constructed here first, just to kind of test the thinking behind it, and then we'll kind of go from scratch and redo some of the stuff. So I'll probably leave the drum stuff in place just to have a bit of a backdrop. I doubt you're tuning in to watch me program drum loops again, although it's always fun. So yeah, I have a data synth, which is sonifying this deep field image. I think it's one of these galactic ones. Maybe the cosmic wreath. Anyway, it's creating this waveform, which is mostly positive. There's not a lot going on. Oh, because I have the bias there, so we can adjust that. I've neglected to recall I had the bias maximized, and it's being sequenced by some data that I got from NASA that is very difficult to decipher what it is, but it's something called, and let me just enable it here. It's called Fig5 from this space physics data set. And if you scroll up to the headings, it looks very scientific, something about protons, km6, kilometers sixth. I don't think that's, I'm just telling on myself with my scientific ignorance here. But we've got some numbers, and we can use those numbers. It would be fun if I knew what they were. But we're going to use also our free Solaris and Cosmos modulators to get some cosmic modulation going on. Anyway, that's what's driving this sort of disco bass line, 16th note bass line. And then what's going on here is I've routed that bass line to an instance of exponder, which is receiving the input every 2 bars and then doing a riff back based on it every other 2 bars. And it's doing so through another instance of data synth, which is sonifying this other deep field image. We can look at some of these other images here to sonify or sequence. And I'm using the Solaris, I'm using the rotation of Mars relative to the cosmic cycle I've set up as 7/16 notes, which governs all instances of Solaris in a set, to modulate the bandpass cutoff on there. So let's start this from scratch. Yes, cannot go wrong with space-themed electronic music. In this case, I thought we'd try to go in a more low-slung cosmic disco direction. So I'm just going to delete these chains so we can recreate it and everybody can see how I got there. We're going to land on a slightly different version. So I'm going to use the Data Synth. I'm going to try and use Data Synth for everything we do today. And yeah, let's go to the image mode. And I could drag and drop the images for this from the Finder, but you won't be able to see that with the streaming software. So it's just easier if I grab it from Live's browser in this case. And we can just experiment with these until we find one that's kind of sounding good. Now we can see this sort of tree line along the bottom, and that comet streak there isn't really doing much. However, if we flip it on the y-axis, and so instead of taking vertical columns, it's now scrolling down the y-axis in rows, now we get this change, this stark change where the dark of the trees are sort of in a different way. Let's hear that. Okay. And I'm in G minor for some reason. We might change that later on. But before we make this into our disco bass, let's go ahead and sequence it, right? So I want to use an instance of data MIDI to sequence it. And yeah, let's go ahead and grab some of that. But before we make this into our... Whoa, a little feedback loop there. Browser bugging out on me. Let's grab some of this proton data, and it looks pretty cool. We're gonna have a bunch of low numbers and then some high and sort of mid ones. Wow, this is gonna be really interesting. There's some great variance in this data. What I mean by that is like the numbers kind of hang out in certain areas for certain times, but it's gonna go up and down. That's 35 steps. I'm just going to get rid of these first three because they're all so low down there. And then, is that going to give me a 32 bar sequence? Yes, or 32 steps. So that's going to be a 2-bar. Hey. Okay, I think this is workable. I'm going to go ahead and drop these down to G, so they're in the root note of the current scale and key. And doing that, I realized that would be a cool feature, wouldn't it, if the pitch, min, and max automatically absorb the current key. That'd be nice. Anyway, these are the thoughts that get me distracted from making music, but I can't do that today because we're making music together, right? So I'm going to turn up the sub because I want this to be like a bass. Get some lower frequencies, and yeah, I think I want to apply some filter cutoff envelope. It's a little too low in the sub region, so I think careful with that octave transposition. Okay, I'm gonna turn off this breakbeat loop. And the sub is just a little too much, but okay. I think a little FM will help as well. Just to give it a little more percussive harmonics at the front of each new note. And we could add some randomization to the filter cutoff just to make it a little more dynamic. And maybe also to the FM amount in an opposite direction. But each one of these randoms gets its own random generator, so they're not related to the same random value. Anyway, okay. I think this might benefit from swing. There we go. And, yeah, let's try the length. But I want to, feel like they're not long enough on the low end there. Okay, it's getting funkier though, isn't it? Try to get some velocity control. Yeah. Okay. Can't quite. Oh, I know why. The length is too long, so it's gating certain notes out. So I'm just gonna do like this. There we go. Nice. Okay. And I think I need to dial back. Okay. So, it's a little mean, so more growly than I was originally envisioning. Maybe let's do a little. There we go. Sine wave on the FM. It's a little more friendly. Oh, that's gonna work. That's gonna work. Okay. Comet in the sky, fueled by protons. Okay, so let's go ahead and replicate something like I had previously with another instance of the Data Synth. And you know, we could fuel it. It's receiving MIDI. I had already configured that, but just to review what I did, it's receiving MIDI from that Data Synth. So I'm going to call this Comet Bass. Okay. I should know which comet that is. It probably is available on the NASA site. All right, so should we sonify data here, or now let's do another image. And yeah, let's go to the space images, obviously. Let's try this tarantula. Okay. And so I muted it because that's just a little too much going on. But yeah, we could tune it to a fifth and just let it roll like that. It needs some massaging. We'll get there, but I really like this waveform. I think that's quite dynamic and very cool. Yeah, a little bit above, a little bit below, dynamic, spiky, some interesting changes. It's going to give a nice waveform full of rich harmonic content, which I am going to trigger. I'll show you how I set that up. So I wanted to explore using Exponder, which you may remember from the very first live stream. And it basically listens to MIDI and then sort of reinterprets it. It reflects back what it was given. And I want to set it to a fixed interval. The default is 2 bars, which is fine. I'll leave it there. So what it's going to do is it's going to listen to the incoming MIDI from Comet Bass every 2 bars, and then every 2 bars it's going to respond with something on top of that. And I don't want to hear the incoming MIDI, so I'm going to set it to solo. And let's go ahead and make sure it's up an octave, so this becomes more of like a lead sort of interpretation. And I'll probably adjust some of the other parameters momentarily, but let's just see how it goes. And It is receive. Oh yeah, no, it's in record mode. Okay, cool. Cool. So every 2 bars, it's riffing based on the notes that came in from the comet and that proton data. Okay, nice. Let's fix the sound a little bit, yeah? So I think I want something a little softer, but also more plucky. Not quite that much release. And that's going to give some nice upper harmonics, the FM frequency from the same self-wave form. Okay, so if it's a little too busy, we can just reduce the density here. And if we wanted to have a little bit more freedom, exploring notes outside of what it was fed, we can give it some autonomy. So this is the pitch note space it can explore outside of what it was given. And we can make them shorter notes overall. Let's give it some of that same swing. And I'm just going to make sure it's a mono output here. I'm not so sold on the envelope settings. And I think the density is just a little too hot. Let's go down to 42. Isn't that a Douglas Adams reference, I think? Nice. Okay. Starting to get real spacey, galactic, and nice. So yeah, my first foray into sonification-based tools was to create this Solaris modulator, which is still available for free on our website. And how it works is you can have as many instances of Solaris as you want, and it's going to generate more or less a sine wave LFO corresponding to any of these different sort of celestial bodies, including all the major moons and maybe even some larger asteroids, I believe. And so you select, say, Saturn, and then you can choose for it to correspond to its orbit around the sun or its daily rotation. And these are all governed by an instance of Cosmos, which defines the relative rate of one Earth day, which means that every instance of Solaris you use in the set is going to be sort of like, how should I say, in relation to the others, the speeds will have the same relative relationship that they do in our solar system. So that's why it's set up this way. Otherwise, I felt like the rates would be kind of meaningless. What's the purpose of an arbitrary rate if it doesn't remain in the same relationship it does out there? So I'm going to map it to the cutoff, this bandpass, and it's a little bit intense. So let's go ahead and drop that down. Modulation amount. Hey, getting real cosmic out here. Real cosmic hours. Okay. I think just need to finesse the velocity amounts. So as the values get higher in this data sequence, the notes are not just going higher in pitch, but they're going down in velocity and getting shorter as well. I'm going to set this to like 95% for some reason. Okay, let's get the cutoff modulated by another instance of Solaris. Let's go Jupiter mode on this thing. And just go ahead and map that to the filter cutoff. And again, the modulation amount by default I often find is a little too intense. So this is gonna be super slow. So we have this little calculator here that I built in to show, based on the current Earth rate, which is always displayed here, what the current cycle length would be galactically or in the solar system in terms of hours, but then corresponding to this number in terms of seconds. So if I go ahead and shorten this, you'll see now, going back to the comet base, it's down to 601 seconds. So that's going to give us a little bit more of a musically useful contour on there. Nice. Okay, so I think we probably need some kind of chord sequence here, but I kind of like how this has come together. Some disco hats. I don't know if they're really working. I just grabbed them from the browser earlier. I've got this idea for another lead. I want to show you how we can use the new OSC mode to harness gestures to create other sounds. But this track doesn't need a lead right now. What it needs is some pads and maybe something else polyphonic. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a nice pad from another NASA image. Let's take a look at this supernova medium. So yeah, let's not do that. The image, let's do this here. There we go. So we have this one spike protruding there with this brightness in this sort of center of the image, I think. See how it sounds. And then, like, yeah, how should we power this? It would be really cool. So I'm just thinking my way through this here. A real hallmark of disco is, the bass line is transposing periodically, right? So we got this nice 2-bar loop on the bass line. But it might be cool if it were, moving around a little bit melodically. And I'm so sorry, I didn't realize the spreadsheet's still in the way. Just take that out of the picture for you. Might use it again later. But yeah, so, right, I want to, actually I am going to use the data again now. I'm going to go to a new MIDI instance of, let's grab the data MIDI. We're going to use this again to generate some transposition data, okay? And this is going to go, oh, lovely, the orange message again. This is going to go and feed the transposition of these other elements. And to do so, I just want 8 figures. Now, I wish I could tell you more about this space physics data set here, but it's lamentably indecipherable. So I'm going to take column C here, this 1 to the millionth whatever, MEVG, some kind of gravitational measurement maybe. And I'm going to grab these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to grab just 4 of those. What am I talking about? 8 is what I meant. 8. And I'm going to drop that here and hit enter. Yes, okay, good. We've now got 8 data values that can then be used to drive. In this case, let's set them to play 1 bar. Let's do 2 bars. 1 bar times 2. So every bar, these will switch from one value to the next. Let's open the viewer so we can see it. And they're all relatively low. Okay, that one goes lower. So let's go to a narrower range for transposition here. Okay, cool. And I'm going to use an X relay to send this out because it just gives me more flexibility later on. So I'm going to call this gravity transpose. Nice. Okay, we're going to use it in relay mode and send that out on relay 1. And so now I can go here, and this is in solo, it's set to receive. Very good. Okay, so now let's go and grab our X relay utility, set it to relay 1. So just transpose that. And I think what needs to happen is these should be actually C3 to C5. To C4, I think. Let's just keep it in that octave. Okay, nice. So now I want to also harness this to trigger another data MIDI, or a data synth rather. Do we already have the chord on there? Yeah, exactly. I have not yet sonified this. Okay. So I'm going to grab a chord and make this into a pad. So we've got quite a few that are similar in value to each other down there. Okay. Give it some noise modulation, little stereo spread, random panning, get some filter. That's a little too much. There we go. That's getting closer to what I'm looking for. Nice, and it's transposing along with the bass line. So Antoine's got a great question. How does Exponder know what to play? So it's not that sophisticated, to be honest. I don't think we have to get too derailed to quickly describe that basically what it's doing. It's storing the notes that come in. And so it's got all those notes stored that came in the last 2 bars. And it uses those notes as the basis to create a randomized recombination of those same notes and chords that it received. So it's using the notes that came in as the notes to play out. It's not trying to follow too strict of an instruction as to how to rephrase those notes. There's a few different algorithms you can select from here. And you can set it to just a counter mode to where it's just counting through the notes that were played in. Maybe I'll set it to that. With the autonomy, that'll be interesting. Well, the density is quite low, so it's going to be different each time which of those notes play. But yeah, it's worth playing around with. Hopefully that was enough of an explanation without derailing completely. And let's go to our pads and give them a little movement. I'm going to use the self envelope, this cosmic image, slowed way down to modulate the filter. Just give it a little motion. Okay, so I think we need another polychord thing. Gravity pads. Okay, what's going on here? Nothing. I have an idea. In fact. Call this OSC to remind myself why that exists. And yeah, let's grab ourselves another instance of our Data Synth, and we can always just mute the pads. Okay, so Data Synth, where was I? There we go. And let's go ahead and grab another NASA image. Geysers on Mars, which I keep forgetting to switch the image mode first. No harm, no foul. That is really cool. I like that. Okay, so I'm going to turn this into a chord pattern, and I'm going to try and do it using our typewriter, using our text sonification. I'm just going to type space is the place and hit enter. So this is going to give another sort of 16th note melody. What I want to do is try parsing just the words. I want the rests. There we go. And let's set it to a much longer. This is going to be that'll be more interesting. And it's too high. And let's hear it. Okay, that's very, very bad. However, it's a starting point, right? And that's the name of the game with so many of these generative tools, is that starting point doesn't need to be your ending point. So I am going to just sort of use the MIDI notes generated by that space is the place phrase from the words, the characters of the words summed together. And let's just go ahead and, well, I'm going to zoom in a little bit first. See if we can get this. Could be good. Now what needs to happen are some scale intervals with the chords, just trying to make it a little more polyphonically exciting here. Could space indeed be the place? Makes one wonder. It's a little twangy. No. There we go. Try a little triangle, FM. I think I want to duplicate this clip. Just give it a little more space. So shift arrow up there. Maybe I'm overcomplicating things, but just wanted to make this musical element a little more interesting. I think we need a little spacey echo, a little spacey delay on there. I think just a simple little delay effect. But let's go ahead and unsync this. Let's get some modulation on the time. Nice. Oh yeah, we got Jupiter transposing this thing, right? Could be good to have like a multiplier of the rate input, but see, the thing is, you could just use a normal LFO for that. The whole purpose is that it is coherent with the rest of the objects in the solar system, so to say. Our little mobile we're creating here. Maybe this also needs, well, I think perhaps we're going cosmic disco mode, get a little chorus effect on there. Yes. And now what we could do is like performatively play around with the comet bass with just like looping. So I'm just shortening the loop so you can see the number of notes in the sequence is shortened there. Now it's down to a 16-bar loop. But it's still being transposed by the gravity pad MIDI from the node, which we can just disable here. And now it won't transpose anymore. And let's re-enable it. Hey, nice. And then we can open up the loop to get back to our full 32 step, which we might need to resync. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put the reset to 2. So that means the next 2-bar loop it'll restart. There we go, everything's resynced again. We can also, have it play backward and explore different ways of expressing the data. It's like, okay, right, so this is a fun little trick I haven't shown before, I don't think, which is that we can, I believe, modulate this amount. Let's try it. Go ahead and grab grab the auto dubber, which is basically designed for these types of situations. So it's stochastically randomizing from minimum to maximum. So I'll go. Oh yeah, it has to go in remote mode on certain controls, such as this one. So 50% of every quarter note it will randomly get sent to this random playback mode. And you're going to see this jumping around. So it's doing little change-ups randomly every couple bars, and I'll do that for half a bar just to make it a little more dynamic and interesting. So this is the pro version of Auto Dubber, but it also comes in our free Mod Squad pack. And that's not the sort of thing that a cyclical orbital device would really make sense to sonify. Okay, but now it's getting pretty dynamic. I like what's going on there. I prefer to stop the clips, but there's no clip there. It's generative, so. Oh, you know what I could do though? Obviously, just pause the data MIDI, although that's gonna, I know what I can do. Another opportunity to show X relay. That's right, I put another X relay after an X relay just so we can use it as a MIDI gate. So it's still gonna send on this relay out, but this input will not go to the chord and the data synth after it. If I re-enable it here, there it is. Very clean mute switch, MIDI-based mute switch. Okay, so yeah, if anybody wants to see anything in particular or has any questions, I really encourage being active in the chat. But in the meantime, I thought it would be cool to show how we could maybe create another lead sound with the OSC mode. Yeah, the OSC mode on data MIDI. And so I'm gonna actually just delete this so you can see from scratch how this is configured, right? Now, there's a little bit of homework, and we've got a page on the website with simple instructions on how to set it up correctly. But you will need to ensure that your phone or iPad or wherever the OSC app is coming from is on the same Wi-Fi network as your computer and sending to the correct IP address as your computer. But we've got, like I said, instructions on how to set that up. So I'm going to go to stream mode. That's where the OSC is accessible. And I'm using this very affordable but fun OSC app. It's called Gyrosk, and it's linked in the notes on the website for how to set this up. And I'm going to just type in what's called a address here. I've already put it to port 2346. You can set it to any other port, but you just have to make sure that the OSC app on your phone or wherever is also on the same port. The port numbers have to match. So I'll go back to 2346, which is our default, and I type in gyrosk/gyro, which happens to be the first address on this app, and hit enter. And now the blue line, that's all the data coming in, and the yellow is the 16th note quantized data coming out as I move the phone around. I don't know. Let's see if you can see that. And so I'm going to finesse those settings in a moment after we, of course, add a data synth to it. Okay. Let's try Space is the Place as the text sonification of the data synth oscillator. Okay, so you can see that as I move the phone, the pitch changes, just like any other data source would change the pitch within the specified range and velocity and all that good stuff. But it needs some work, this sound, doesn't it? It's, you know, we have to get things dialed in, so to say. So I'm going to set it to a high pass filter because we don't have anything totally living up there. That other lead is, it's band passed, if I'm not mistaken. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and do some fine FM, get some atonal stuff going on there. And we're not hearing anything because Live's transport isn't running. So, okay, now that's really just all kinds of hairy, and I'm not liking how it feels in my ears. So it's generating continuous 16th notes. There are a few ways we can address this. One is with the clock, which I'll get to momentarily, but another is with the gate. So it's only going to send MIDI notes when the values from the gyro are above a certain value coming in here. So right now, it's below the midpoint. But as soon as I move the phone, we get notes. So I'm going to move this up even an octave. Now, it's still just playing 16th notes, which to me is not that interesting. I think it would be cool if it played, well, let's try every third 16th note, and then maybe we will invert that. So we call this gestural sonification. We're also sonifying this text of space being the place and all that. What I want to do is ultimately capture this, right? I can't be moving my phone around the whole dang time I'm trying to produce this track. That's not going to fly. So I think I'll just create a new MIDI track here and kiss these defaults goodbye and set it to receive from our oscillator track. Yes, very good. And arm it for recording. And let's just see. Let's invert this. So I'm just manually changing whether it's playing every third or every not third. Okay, I think there were some good bits in there actually. And so now that we've captured that, right, we can just go, drop it back here, and turn the port off. And now it won't receive anything anymore, whether MIDI is playing or not. Very good. And now this MIDI will trigger our space is the place lead. And we have to trigger it, of course. And we call this... And you know I gotta assign the track color. Okay. And we are not hearing it because the data MIDI is set to solo. And now we can allow the notes through. Give it some glide. Dial that back a little bit. So I think it was like the first 20 bars. That last note is not necessary. I'm going to try and finesse the sound a little bit. You know, fly by the seat of our pants a little bit in these sessions, so things might take a little bit of massaging. But what I'm going to do is leave that one in place so we can go back to it. And then in this lead here, just this duplicated version, Command D, I'm just going to select everything and let's go ahead and with the Command key held, drag the velocities down, impose some deviation, make it a little more lively, and do the same with the chants, setting them all to about, 74%, I suppose. And that's just to make it so, yeah, you know, I'm kind of rushing along here trying to show all this fun stuff, and it was a little bit, you know, just haphazard the way I played the phone, but hopefully you can see that you could get into a real gestural flow here and really do some interesting performative playing through movement and capturing that as MIDI. So what I want to do now is, this sound is a little bit thin. That's due in part to the high pass, of course, but I'm going to group it to a rack. And then let's go ahead. I'm going to name this Space Place. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to rename this one. I had another space-themed. Oh, yeah, zoom out. Right, so now this one I'm going to type in, when in doubt, zoom out. Okay, so now we've got two different oscillators. And let's... Okay, so this one I think we want down. So I think it would have been good to have a little bit of attack on there first. I'm noticing there's a little crunchy at the onset, so I want to just kind of mitigate that a little bit. And I'm going to increase the random panning on both, but also set their individual panning a little bit opposite one another to sort of widen the expression. I wonder what it would be like if one of them had a different glide time and a different fine tuning. Hey, okay, it's getting a little more interesting. Okay, so before I start messing with the filter cutoff, I think I want to map both of them to the same macro, which, had I done that beforehand, the duplicate would have been automatically mapped. Cool. Now I think that I probably wouldn't want that playing at the same time as the exponder. And the exponder one, of course, the same goes here in terms of, you know, we can't just have it continuously generating until the end of time if we're going to, you know, arrange this as a composition. So I think I would be better off if I go ahead and record some of that as MIDI 2, and I'm going to call this galactic response, yeah? Something like that. And I'm naming that in advance so that when I assign it to record, okay, yeah, from galactic response. Great. Hey, basically everything is in Data Synth so far. Yes, pretty much every sound is in Data Synth. Generated with, well, we haven't done one with data yet, so that might be the final special sauce here. All right, this is sort of a refactored, expondered space physics data set coming from NASA, and we're going to capture the refactoring from exponder as it re-randomizes it. And Solaris, we've got a few instances of Solaris. It's a modulator that's controlled by the movement of different celestial bodies, all harnessed by the base rate of Cosmos, which determines the relative rate of 24 hours here on good old Earth. And that's controlling, well, different instances of it are controlling different things throughout the set, although this could, of course, be mapped to others. All right. Sorry, I get carried away with the questions. I love the questions. Yes. Don't be shy. But let's continue on with recording this MIDI. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't stop for the first 2 bars. Now it's creating some more. And so as we record it, I'm just going to disable the OSC lead so we can hear it a little better. And I'm just going to articulate the density a bit here. Let's get 32 bars of this, and then come what may, let's see what happens. Give it maximum autonomy, maximum density for the final run. All right, is that enough? I reckon so. Which means we can now just disable the old exponder there. This to auto, disable that, and so this first 2 bars should not really be in the mix, technically. Okay, I need to fix the Comet bass line here. Okay, get the pads going again. It's pretty quiet, I notice. I think it's the band pass. Let's get some random panning. Nice, getting all sparkly and interstellar. These gravity pads need a little more dust. A little more interstellar dust, right? Isn't that what they call it? All right. Noise modulator there, independent of the other frequency modulation, which could maybe also, yeah, thicken it up a little bit. Ooh. Nice. Hey, Vento. We welcome the fire emojis, a little cosmic flame for you. Yes. It's funny, I always like to respond to the chat, but I can't get YouTube to re-show the chat on the stream, so people who watch this later probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And you know what? That is perfectly fine with me. You had to be there. Okay, so where are we at? We have like 20 minutes left to wrap this up into some kind of arrangement. Let's see, I think I want to, can I map some controls to my little trusty nano control here? I think I want to map, for example, the loop length to this dial, which, that's unfortunate. Let me just check my MIDI settings, and that would explain it. That would explain it. It was not enabled for remote control, but now there it is. Okay. Fixing problems on the fly is so often part of our lives in the studio, isn't it? Okay, so now I can dynamically adjust the loop length. What else do I want to play with as I record this into a cut here? Probably all kinds of filter stuff, which maybe I'm not going to worry too much about all that. But you know what? Yeah, let's try. One thing I do like to do before I go too crazy with such assignments, I mean, the loop is already constrained. Although, you know, I don't think I want it as short as one note. Well, we'll see. What I want to do with the synth, though, before I map the cutoff, which might be tricky because it's already controlled. I can just remap the Solaris. Thinking out loud here, gang. All right, I'm going to group this to a rack is what I was trying to say, because by mapping this to a macro, hey, which worked no problem along with the Solaris. That is pretty cool. I can now constrain the range, right? So it's going to remain a little more musically useful. For example, I don't want to go down to 20. I don't want to go nearly that high either. Let's keep it 640, something like that. And now, go ahead and map this to here. And you know, I don't always do it, but if I can, I like to always go through a process during these sessions to get at least a rough arrangement recorded in real time. And to do so, let's just go ahead and quickly instruct some of these to do different things. For example, this drum clip. Let's go down here and say, for the starters, we don't necessarily want the clap or this percussion stuff. We'll just start with the... we don't want the tambourines either. Kick solo, rename, duplicate, and now I can selectively re-enable and rename. Trusty 707 for our little cosmic disco voyage. And then, yeah, I'm not going to overthink it. Let's just go full bore on this one. And so it's just giving myself options. I'm not going to sort of arrange the whole sequence of clips and the scenes here before I go ahead and record. So now I got to make sure that's off and set this to, let's do an 8-bar sequence. And it could also be fun to maybe use the OSC mapping on the phone to control something, but it won't be recorded. So maybe we can look at that after we get this arrangement in. Okay. Responder, just so I know what that is. Oh, and the pads, let's go ahead, and I'm turning them off and on with this, which I will now map also to this button on my nano control. Perfect. And so what else was going on there? The Comet bass, just going to make sure this is working. Yep, I think we're good. I think we're ready to roll. Oh, these are the chords. Let me go ahead and name that so I don't get lost. Chords. Maybe that's how they pronounce chords on some distant planet where they say words almost the same as us, but with 2 letters reversed for some reason. That'd be a fun planet. Okay. It's been a long week. I'm getting a little silly. These are kind of both leads, and these are kind of more mid-range sounds, and so that's going to make more sense to me. So let's see. It's going to start with a kick. And let me just make sure these hats are working. I think... Oh, we're on the 8-bar launch. LOL. I'm going to pitch them down. That's working way better for the disco energy there, too tinny. And I'm going to set it to a sort of uneven. Let's do a 7-bar cycle so that open hat is coming around a little less predictably. Yeah. So easy to take the pads out. Okay, great. I think not going to start with the chords. Not going to start with the responders. This lead we weren't even using. Move all that out of the way. And yeah, let's just see what happens. I think maybe we'll start with the vintage breaks. Just a little low pass feel on the percussion vibe underneath everything. And so, yeah, let's give it a go. Just starting with this first scene. And nice. Just playing with the loop length of that data generated bass line, opening the filter up a little bit. Let's go ahead and add our clap. Actually, no, yeah, the clap will be good. What a funny tune. Just got the chords going. Nice, I can really just kind of mute the pads in and out with the MIDI, and it's totally clean. I love that. Just what YouTube needs, more videos of somebody bopping along to a inexplicable cut of strange dance music. Okay, let's go ahead and end these and drop the So I think the disco hats could have come out then. Fix it in post, no problem. Needs a little finesse, that transition, but that's what arrangement view is for. Just trying to get a good like, I don't know, 160 bars, a decent duration. Get some dub echo on those leads. Seems sensible. We're trying to go to outer space after all. I don't know, breakdown time? What do you say? That kind of worked. Needs some finesse, obviously, but hey, Jethro. Thank you. That someone's enjoying. Getting dubby with it. Let's get the responder going again, maybe. And then I think we need to really dub it all the way out, is what I'm sensing here. Seems like a fitting way to end a Cosmic Disco jam. And just adjusting the loop length on that bass sequence with that occasional randomization of it. Hey, sneak it in while you can. Time to take those hats out. And we're just gonna start to progressively minimize it, wind it down a little bit. It's not quite Italo disco. It's outer space disco is what it is. Good. Some dub even on the bass. Is that too much? I don't know. Hey, okay. That's something. Well, we got there in the end. I neglected to record the Comet bass as MIDI, which I'll have to do. Well, we can do that now. That's kind of the last chore. It should have recorded the automation of what I did there. And let's see now. On the bass track, yes, it seems to have captured the automation. Very good. Okay, so while we're listening back, I'm going to capture that Comet bass. You can see it's empty, and the pad. So let's do a little housekeeping here. And this isn't unique to the sonification tools. It's not unique to anything other than the fact that it was being triggered generatively. And so I could have recorded this MIDI in real time. I neglected to set it up. But this gives us a chance to listen back and get it in there. So I'm going to call this bass capture. And this is the time where I really start to invite questions about anything we looked at. And here we go with a little pad capture. And we might need to be a little bit specific about where the MIDI is getting pulled from. Obviously Comet bass, obviously post effects. Yeah, I think that'll do the trick. Okay, and then the pad capture could be a little bit trickier. It's going to come from the gravity pads, and it's going to come, yeah, post effects, because just double checking what the end of the effects chain is yes. It's after this and after the chords. That should work. So now I'm going to arm those for MIDI both, and before we listen back, I'm going to arm the transport to record, and it's receiving. Nice. Okay. Outer space, cosmic disco. It's a vibe. It's some kind of vibe. So Exponder, a couple summers ago, ChatGPT was unleashed on the world, and this began the deluge of prompt-based musical tools that we've been inundated with ever since. However, you know, and listen, I'm putting some text in the text sonification, but that's not to actually expect that, you know, there's no sentiment analysis. It's just going to generate some notes based on not necessarily anything correlated with the words I've typed in. I'm going to land this plane, don't worry, John. So the thinking behind Exponder at the time was I wanted to create that kind of chatbot experience for musicians, so that when you play notes in, you get notes back as a response. So you continue to think musically and get a musical response right away in real time, because I just feel like this kind of verbal linguistic mode of thought is borderline anathema to what I would call embodied musical experience. And I wanted to create a device that could serve that a little better. So it was devised that this kind of Jambot musical chat buddy, where it's basically just taking the notes you play in, or the notes it receives, and sort of reflecting those back to you based on a few different algorithms you can select from. But it's based entirely on the notes you play in, and then the other settings you can adjust along with that. It was also designed to work kind of hand in glove with our X-Translate, which converts audio to MIDI in real time. And it's also meant to work with the X Looper. And so those three come in a bundle. We call it the musician bundle. And so the looper I devised because, you know, all of a sudden Exponder's spitting out this magic that is hard to repeat. So the X Looper was developed as a way to capture those magical moments and work with them in a loop-based way. But it also became a much more creatively powerful tool than I expected. And I'm going to do another, probably the next one of these sessions, I'll use X Looper quite a bit, because I feel like I haven't really shown off some of the really fun stuff it can do. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded on the Exponder, and hopefully made sense and answered your question, John. Happy to take any other questions while we capture the bass and pads here. So yeah, some finessing to do all around here, but was this OSC track still set up to receive? Why does it say it's recording? That's funny. Still got quite a ways to go here, and some finessing to do as well. I hope this has been an interesting session, kind of looking at some more playful ways to incorporate sonification and not, you know, necessarily be overly dutiful in representing the data in a particular way, but yeah, more this idea of like taking inspiration and really playing with it and seeing where it takes you, using the data, using the images, using the text as new sources of creative fuel to be used however you want. Yeah, those hi-hats are so much better pitched down. Yeah, I've got some ideas how I might finesse this. It's pretty loose and wild, but you know, my process is I like to sort of look at the session view as my palette and get all these sound colors going. But a palette's going to dry up by the time you come back to it, maybe. So it's good to get something up on the canvas before it's too late, so you remember what you were aiming at. So I always like to, at the end of a session, if I can, record some kind of rough arrangement like this, just so that when I open the project again, I have, you know, some indication of what I was driving at. And I accidentally clicked later on, so this is good little moment to see how you can remedy that. These are still armed to record. Just rearm this and start playback from where the play header currently is, and they will start recording anew from that point onward. And yeah, I'm gonna go and delete all the empty space on the pad capture. And yeah, isn't cheap. I need to check the pricing on the exponder there. It's always interesting to me what, you know, where everybody's value meters are at and where the market sort of defines that. I tend to look at these things in terms of, I mean, there's the time I put in on the one hand, but then also the possibilities opened up by it, I feel, factor in somewhat. But yeah, you know, I'm always looking for feedback on these things because I like to make the tools, I like to make music with them. Marketing is like definitely not a strong point for me, nor is like market research and all that. So, you know, it's always interesting to hear. We're almost there. We're almost at the end of this long-winded cosmic jam. So, yeah, I think I can, listen back to the leads generated by, yeah, the exponder here. I think I can make them a lot more intentional, sort of playing around with removing notes to turn it into a more sort of deliberate sounding artifact, as they say, I believe in the UK sometimes. Okay, and all kinds of automation, all kinds of editing, all kinds of finesse that I would like to and will do. I'm going to do a couple things real quick after I get this last little phrase of the bass recorded. Thanks for bearing with me on that recording session. So now what happens is I can go here and just disable that stuff and put these these where they're meant to be on the Comet bass. And just go ahead and delete the bass capture, I think, right? Yep, it's there. Hey, nice. Okay, and then same goes for the pads, which I'm going to go and just do a little homework here, getting rid of all this empty space so I can see more clearly. Like, I don't want, when I collapse all the tracks, to have the illusion of pads throughout the whole thing because there's purple stuff everywhere. That's no good. Just drag these up here, and let's go ahead, and I'm not particularly sold on these colors, but I do like them to match. Delete this, and now is that? Yep, we're good. And this had that break in it, so I'm just going to join those together back into one seamless, happy family of bass notes. And let me see what was going on here. There was something I wanted to do. I wanted to maybe take these out here. Yeah. And then, let's see, just grab 8 bars of this and drop it there, and that'll wind it down into the break a little more intelligibly, perhaps. Although, I think maybe this could have some percussion without the tambourines. So yeah, just a quick dissection of what I did there, because I didn't show this at the start. This is a little bit of homework I did before the session today. But what I like to do is take a snare and a rim and set them to the grouped randomized notes. So it will play either snare or rim, and they're down at like, 42%. And all of them are like that, and all of them are syncopated. So on all these syncopated 16th notes, there's a 42% chance that either the snare or the rim will play. And what this means is we have kind of a structure of a pattern in which it's very non-repetitive, but it's not, nothing is happening sort of out of pocket, so to say. Let's go ahead and end this right there.